The Dentalpreneur Podcast. Okay, doctor, it's time to put down that handpiece. You're listening to the show dedicated to helping dentists get their lives back. It's time to decrease your stress, increase your profitability, and regain your passion. Now introducing your host, Dr. Mark Costas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dentalpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mark Costas. What's up, my friends? I hope you're doing great out there in podcast land. All right, I got a great friend on with me today. You guys will all recognize his name from a lot of the commercial spots that we do, and he's a many-time guest on the Dentalpreneur Podcast, and that is Dr. Christopher Green. Dr. Green is a very, very accomplished private practice dentist. He's one of the DSI black belt coaches as well. He doesn't even know that I have this, but we put together, my team put together a quick bio from what they could find online. And I'm just going to read it really quick. It says, Dr. Christopher Green is a third-generation dentist. His professional accomplishments include top 40 under 40 and a 5280 top dentist. He's a coach with the Practice Launchpad, which is a company with the mission of helping dentists to avoid the most common of expensive mistakes that occur when starting or acquiring a dental practice. Dr. Green opened his first dental practice from scratch in 2018. Thorough preparation and research led to quick growth for Green Dental Care. In his first year as a startup, Dr. Green's practice brought in revenues of over $1.3 million with almost 1,300 new patients. In his free time, he enjoys exploring the Colorado Rockies with his family. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Hey, how are you? I was a little nervous when you said he hasn't heard this one before. So you guys were kind to me, though.
Yeah, my team is really, really good. They even when I don't ask for it, if I'm even just having a chat with somebody, they crawl the interwebs and they find out all these interesting tidbits about my guests, and then they give me like a little packet to have like things to talk about. Most times I'm like, well, you didn't have to do that with Chris. I've known Chris for years, and but actually, there's some things in there that I didn't know about you. So cool. I'm glad they did that. How are you doing today?
Yeah, all is well. We got a Monday here, about 1 degree here in Colorado. Nice. So it's been a cold winter, a lot of snow. I think Prescott's been the same way, right?
Yeah. My youngest and I went snowboarding this weekend. That's our new thing that we do together. I kind of have a thing that I do together with all of my boys. Like for Bryce, it was missionary work. He and I went to a bunch of dental missions as he was growing up. My middle son, he's a baseball player and I was a baseball player. So he and I go to different baseball camps. Our favorite one every year is in Florida in December. And we kind of, we do a father-son baseball camp where I actually get instruction and I put the baseball gear on myself and swing the bat like 1,000 times in 5 days, which is not easy for me, but I prep for it all year. So that's kind of our thing. And Brady and I didn't really have a thing yet. He's going to start taking Bryce's position on the mission trips because Bryce is in college now. But Brady really likes boarding activities. So we started going snowboarding together. I'm not super awesome yet, but he picked it up, dude, like so fast. So every chance we get, we hit the mountain here in Flagstaff, and it's been a really good snow year here in Arizona. It's been really freaking cold though in Prescott, but that's how you embrace the that's how it's never you never hit the winter blues as you get active out in it, right? As all you awesome people out in Colorado know. It could be cold as heck, but that's just good news for you guys.
Well, I love it. I'm a boarder myself, and we were up this weekend. It was just dumping. We got about 11 inches on Friday to Saturday and had some good runs. Wow. And then we got our daughter. She's 3 years old. We got her on skis for the first time this weekend. And
oh my God.
Yeah, I was with the little guy in the lodge, and my wife's the ski instructor.
Really?
So yeah, she's good. She's taught, she worked with the National Sports Center for the Disabled and taught a lot of kids how to ski. And so I said, plus the way it went when I was trying to teach our 3-year-old ice skating, I was like, I think mom's just more patient than dad. I was like, come on, this is easy. What's going on here? Can't you stand on these skates yet?
She's 3, bro. She's 3.
I know. I'm brutal. No, awesome. we had fun, but yeah, I love it. And when you guys come to Colorado, we'll have to get out on the boards.
Yeah, I need about 15 more trips to our local hill before I start snowboarding with my friends. You guys are all experts out there in Colorado, but I'll do my best. I mean,
Well, you're an athlete. You'd be fine.
That's what everybody says. It's like, yeah, but boarding is, I mean, you all know that it's like you can be the best athlete in the world and still not pick up like quickly to like, surfing or wakeboarding or snowboarding. It's a different set of skills outside of hand-eye coordination for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
sore tailbone.
Oh, for sure. But anyway, I have a deep respect for all of you boarders now and all you skiers, all you winter recreational folks. So hey man,
that's what I love about us. We could spend another 20 minutes talking about non-dental stuff, but I'm sure you want to hop into the topic for today.
No, man. I mean, I'll talk about anything. You know me. So the Practice Launchpad. We've done commercials on the Practice Launchpad for the Dentalpreneur. We've actually we've hosted events together as far as the Practice Launchpad goes. And you, Dr. Taher Dune, and I are the founders of a separate coaching company from DSI, although DSI is a sister company because we teach a lot of the same things as far as systemization and HR. And so there are some overlapping deliverables in DSI versus TPL, but maybe you can share with people kind of the history of the Practice Launchpad, how it got started, and kind of what the mission statement is for this particular company.
Absolutely. So Practice Launchpad, I just love the title because a lot of it's like launching our career into practice ownership, whether it's startup or as acquisition. Mm-hmm. I think, we're a little confused, I would say at one point as to like, what is this new entity? What are you guys up to? And it's like, well, we had there's a branch, it's a branch of DSI. I'd call it a little cousin because it's so much smaller. But I think that we wanted to catch people, there are a lot of associates, guys and gals thinking about ownership, reaching out like, hey, how did you guys develop and grow your practices so fast? And it's like, well, this is like pre-DSI in a way. Would you agree with that?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, you were well on your way to a very, very solid trajectory without DSI. DSI was a little bit of kerosene we poured on the open flame, and kind of put some systems behind what you were already doing. But man, you are on a tear already. In fact, a lot of the startup things you learned in the trenches, kind of by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, there's when you're in it and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to take on this massive loan to open this startup, mm-hmm. and it's like, where can I save? And we've talked about it before, but for me, it was like I need to have working capital at the end of the day because I don't know if patients are going to come through the door.
Yep.
And so if I'm spending too much on all the various areas of this startup, that's less money to pay a team and hedge me against the chance that this thing's not going to come out of the gates firing on all cylinders.
For sure.
And so I spent a lot of time going line item on by line item. I remember during downtime at one associate position, I mean, I was comparing refrigerators from Costco and Target for the waiting room, a cost savings of like $75.
Seriously.
But I had the time and you're trying to grind it out. You do that on several things. All of a sudden you've got couple $1,000 back in your pocket and leads to profitability quicker when you start actually paying the bills and start actually seeing patients. So that kind of was the thought process behind the Practice Launchpad. Me and Taher sat down together and said, how can we help docs get to their practice ownership dreams quicker with less headaches and, with less debt? And we put together kind of our systems and put the playbook together alongside you. And, all of us joined hands. And I think the results speak for themselves. We got a lot of happy people that are well on their way to successful startups. And some of them already have collected over $1 million in their first year. For sure.
For sure. I love talking to you guys about this stuff so much because you're scrappers kind of like I am. And by me, it was out of necessity because I didn't qualify for, startup loans after a certain number of practices that I had. So I had to like bootstrap so many different projects. I mean, bootstrapping for me is just kind of synonymous. It's like my middle name, Mark Bootstrap Costas. It's like, if you're going to do something else, if you're going to have another practice, well, you're going to have to figure out how to do that with creative measures. Acquisitions we did creatively with a lot of seller financing, et cetera. A lot of equity swaps in the beginning. And then for startups, it's like, oh, this is a perfect facility. It's just now vacated. How can I get in there with basically no money for a build out, no money for equipment? And that's how I kind of cut my teeth. My favorite story about kind of the scrappiness of how it all started was like, there's this tiny little mountain town, the one of the towns close to the Grand Canyon. It was about 5,500 at the time. I think it might be 5,600 now, like 12 years later. It's a slow growing little tiny town, but tiny little town. A lot of those patients were driving over an hour and a half to one of my other locations. And I'm like, this is interesting. A good accumulation of these people are traveling a great distance to get to me. Turns out I was the closest that accepted a lot of their insurance. And then I found out, I went to visit this cute little town. I came to find out they didn't have another dentist. Their dentist of the last 20 previous years had passed away 3 years earlier. He still had his practice there. Like, it was literally like he put the high speed down one day, he died and never came back to the practice. So I tried to go in there and they're like, yeah, well, you can basically have this. The landlord was like, you can have all of his equipment, all of his physical charts, just get in there. But it was a one operatory practice. Crazy enough. Like, it was literally like 350 square feet. So I was like, thank you very much. I appreciate it, but there's nothing I can do here. Like, there's no room for expansion and I can't do much out of one operatory. And he was doing all of his own cleanings. He would see 8 patients a day and typical small town stuff. All good. So I went to the medical center. They had like a little hospital. And in this medical center, they had a couple different physicians, general physicians. They were basically triage physicians. And for all the people in this town, they would either send them to Flagstaff or down to Phoenix or down to Prescott. And they would triage people, but they'd be able to help people with the flu and broken bones and stuff like that. So it was basically it was kind of like an urgent care, but it was large. So I walked in there and I asked for the medical director and I was like, hey, do you have any space that I can rent? I'm a dentist and I want to move into town. They're like, oh, we really, really need a dentist in town. Let's see what we can do. They're like, well, we really don't have anything. We're at max capacity. But if you walk to the back through those 2 doors, that used to be our OB department. We no longer do that here. We don't deliver babies in town anymore, but see what you could make of this thing. And literally it was probably 600 square feet and they were using it as like a storage closet. And there's like OB stuff all over the place. It would like literally from floor to ceiling with like medical equipment. And half of it was a hallway and half of it was an exam room. And that was it. So I'm like, okay, I'll take it. And they let me rent it for like $250 a month. Right. So, I get on the phone with a few of my friends that own multiple practices in Phoenix. I'm like, hey, dude, do you have a couple chairs that I can have or buy from you? So I bought 3 chairs for $1,000. And me and a couple friends put them in the back of a pickup truck and we drove them out to this place. We rented our own dumpster and we threw all the stuff away in this little storage closet, basically. So it turned out that our reception area was the hallway. And then we had 2 chairs, one in one closet and one in another closet. But the entire facility was built in the 1950s and it was made out of cement and asbestos, we later found out. So I couldn't drill through anything. It would have been, cost prohibitive for me to try to run lines. So I had these little mobile units that I bought from Aseptico and they were like literally like you'd flip them on for suction and it sounded exactly like a shop vac because that's what it was. And we would shop vac and use mobile units. And we did that for about 6 months until we built up enough capital to put a down payment on the hair salon that was for sale. And then we built that out and I ended up selling that thing 5 years later for 7 figures. That and one other practice that we merged together. And I started that practice for $3,000, including the computer. And it's just crazy. Like when you have to do something and you know that it's a good business proposition, you figure out ways to do it. What I think happens nowadays, Chris, is that people just get these signature loans, for a startup for $650,000. And they're like, they don't have any type of mentorship, no guidance at all. So they go to their supply rep who says, oh, well, yeah, naturally you need 6 8-deck chairs at $25,000 per operatory. That sounds fine. I mean, if you're doing this for the very first time, you don't know that there's any other options, and you can probably get an operatory for like $8,000. You don't know that dental cabinetry isn't mandatory. You don't know that this particular IT bid is 3 times higher than it needs to be because you've never looked at an IT bid before. So there's so many different things that if you try to do this by yourself, like we did by ourselves in the beginning, you could just be very, very inefficient with the money that is given to you. And you could use, believe me, you could use every dollar as working capital as you're trying to ramp this thing up, because you never know what's going to happen. You might not be a home run practice like Chris Green and have 150 people walk through their doors and make appointments the first month. If you're marketing correctly, hopefully you will, but it might be a little bit slower of a process. And spending money just for the sake of spending money because it was given to you by the bank or lent to you by the bank is a really, really bad strategy. Coming in with good people behind you that have done this dozens of times is the way you got to go.
And I love that story. That was I hadn't heard that one before. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Those opportunities, I mean, are still out there too. They are. I mean, you just got to be ready and be looking around. Now, I don't think that exact scenario is going to play out for a lot of people, but we do have ways to, for example, I'll share kind of a middle of the road between what you did and, the traditional startup these days that's costing, I mean, startups are now over 700,000 in a lot of cases, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So we recently acquired a practice up the street that was it's a great facility. We already know the demographics are great, and we could send overflow from our flagship there. And the doc was retiring, but we got it for $320,000, and it's like you can't even build that. That's the construction. The construction costs right now are more than that.
Exactly.
So now I have a pseudo startup because he only had probably 300 active patients. And, you kind of bootstrap it and you take all the overhead philosophies that we've talked about and instilled. You bake in really low fixed costs by being careful. And once this thing's collecting, $83,000 a month and it's $1 million practice, which I project isn't very far away, it's going to take longer than my flagship because it's very much driven by the team and not me. But I'm willing to accept slower growth because of that.
Sure.
But once it's doing that, I mean, we're going to easily be at that 40% overhead mark that I'm at the flagship. So, but yeah, you go through these phases and early on, you're in grinder mode. So a mentor might have even been you. A mentor said this a while ago, early days, it's grinder mode. Okay. Eventually you graduate from that. And then you have to decide how valuable is my time? Do I pay somebody to do this or not? But all you have is time as an associate. And if you don't have time, that's because you're not using your nights or weekends properly.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, if you think about it, Chris, like you probably take for granted, well, not so much you, but other people that have gone through this process a number of times probably take for granted the knowledge that they picked up over the years, right? But if you think about it from the very beginning, like, and to your point, I want to digress just for a second. To your point, I think that people that are buying distressed practices or have in their mind that they want to do a startup, if they come across these practices that are already built out with maybe a couple 100, 300 patients, and you go in there with the mindset that this is going to be like a startup and it's just an added bonus that I have these 300 people here, but I'm not going to count on building up, this existing infrastructure and utilizing those 300 people as the practice that I'm going to build everything around. They're just extra value there, just a little bit of side extra value. The real value is in that the big pieces of the build out are already done, but you have to go in there saying, all right, we're going to either reconfigure this thing or we're going to put lipstick on it. but we're going to have to probably put new computer systems in there. We're going to put new technology in there. We're going to put new equipment in there. So it's going to be in large part like a startup. If you go in with that mindset, you could save yourself a ton of money and time. It's a lot faster to do it that way than it is to go from a total startup. So, but you can't go into those saying, I'm going to turn this practice around and I'm going to borrow $300,000 because it's on sale for $300,000 and I'm going to take $50,000 in working capital and turn this thing around. It's very, very difficult to do that.
I'm glad you brought that up because in this situation, it's 6 ops, potentially 7. So there was nothing wrong with the layout, clean facility. We threw a little paint on it, changed some light bulbs, made it look very modern and took the doors off the cabinets like you taught me. And, it's ready to go. Right. And so it has to have the bones. And then the rent was ridiculous. It's ridiculously cheap. So everything made sense. Like you said, you don't want to go into one of these and now have to invest a ton of money. You want to be able to bootstrap it. Yep. I think that's the theme of this call, bootstrap.
Bootstrapping.
We go, I don't know if you were anything like me in school, you take out the loan and it's like, okay, this is the ticket to the show. I'm going to deal with this debt later. Right. But if we do that with a practice as well, and it's like, okay, I'm going to take out this loan and deal with it later, deal with paying it back. We're just, putting our future on hold with all these loans that are strapped to us. So if we could save money anywhere and get more profitable faster, man, that's going to fold time for ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. So if I'm looking back and I'm trying to put this path together, right? So, you put one brick in front of another as you're building a path, but you're actually walking the path at the same time, right? So you have to do the demographics in order to find a good location, not just a good city. That goes without saying. You got to find a good overall demographic. Like it has to be in a city that's growing and not declining. The main area that you want to select should be, I want to say, less than 45 minutes from a major airport. And there should be some solid industry, right, in the town. And then when you get more specific to demographics, you're looking at drive-by traffic, you're looking at egress, ingress, you're looking at all kinds of specifics that way. You don't necessarily, sometimes it's unavoidable, but it might not be ideal for you to be in a professional plaza with 15 other dentists. I've seen people successful doing it that way, but it might not be the best option if you have other options. So demographics first. And then you're looking at, okay, I found the right site. Then you have to start, negotiating with the landlord. If you go into negotiations with a professional landlord, that's like me going into, in his prime, deciding that I want to fight Mike Tyson. You're going to lose 100% of the time. So at least go in there with a little bit of knowledge and maybe somebody in your corner that does this for a living. Okay. So you got site selection, you got, community selection, site selection. Now you narrow it down to 1, 2, or 3 different spots and you're going to start talking with landlords. Okay. You secure a spot. Now you're like, okay, do I need an architect? Do I need a designer who's going to help me turn this either hot dog shape, hamburger shape, or hybrid shape into a workable dental practice? So what does that look like? And then who's going to build it for me? So you got designer, architect, contractor. Okay, everything gets built. Now you're like, okay, what am I going to put in this thing as far as equipment? Do I trust my equipment rep? Or my supply rep who's going to refer me to their equipment rep? Do I trust them and just carte blanche because the guy took me out to dinner one time and say, yes, everything you say, I'm going to do. All this equipment, you say it's the best, it's going to last 30 years. I'm going to just bite the bullet and buy that now? Or are you going to go in there with a little bit of knowledge so that you can at least ask intelligent questions and start negotiating a little bit? So you got equipment, you got IT, you got supplies, you got HR. It just goes, the list gets longer and longer and longer every time I think about all the things that go into it. You try to do that by yourself and you're worrying about, improving the speed of your crown prep at the same time. You got a lot on your plate, man.
Yeah, I'm exhausted just listening to all that. Glad I won't be going through all the steps on my own again, but happy to help those that have joined hands with us. And to go all the way back to kind of the lease negotiation phase and finding the space, I want to share an example of how you really want to have a professional on your side and a lawyer that's done a lot of these cases or a lot of these negotiations. So we have clients outside Tennessee, Nashville, obviously a very, very popular area these days, growing rapidly. And there's this hot spot that a new up and coming neighborhood with a strip mall right on the main drag. And a lot of dentists are passing it up because the landlord's kind of a bully. And the guys with us, they felt that we're working with, they had a little more confidence in going in there because they knew they had people in their corner. And once they pulled back the kimono on the landlord, they kind of realized like that was just his approach. You know, he's going to come in hot, and we start peeling back the layers, and it's like, okay, the landlord's, you know, he's not going to be my best friend. I ain't going golfing with him. But there was a reasonable deal to be made here somewhere in the thick of all this. And now they've kind of, the competition that was going to go in this area isn't there. So they're going to have a great location and be able to really kill it from day one.
Yeah, I love that story. It's so true. Sometimes you just have to take one step further than most people are willing to take, with the right kind of attitude for one, and the right expertise behind you. And that can make all the difference. But I will say that I've made so many mistakes when it comes to startups. But for me, the stakes weren't as high because I only had to lose what I had in my bank account, which wasn't a lot back in the beginning. You know, nowadays I do, Chris, I believe that the stakes are so high, and I take these consulting calls with people all the time. And sometimes I'm like, oh God, I just wish you would have called me a year ago and talked to Chris Green or to Hare a year ago instead of now. Now you have $600,000 in student loan debt. You have $650,000 in startup debt. You didn't hire well. This demographic isn't proving to be what you thought it would be. Your marketing message is all over the place. You don't have a good reputation because you haven't taken the time to get those Google reviews. You way overpaid for your equipment and your IT. You never negotiated the lease with your landlord, and you're getting taken advantage of in rent and will be for the next 10 years. You're producing good dentistry. Maybe this first year you did $600,000. Congratulations. That's not easy to do from a startup, but you have so many of the chips stacked against you because of walking into this thing without without some mentors and without some backup.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of these beautiful startups that have gone belly up, because I think that this startup thing's become very sexy, and we aren't doing it kind of methodically and grinding it out and scrapping it out to watch what we're building, right, and figure out how we're going to pay this back. But the good news is there is a way to do it. You know, there's we're hosting this course coming up March 9th and 10th in Houston. It's going to be a startup masterclass. We'll call it a startup boot camp, whatever you will. I think we're calling it, dental startup masterclass. Mm-hmm. And we're going to lay out the framework as to how we were able to save money on different projects we've done, and how to, bake in those fixed costs at a low spot early on before you open doors, and then grow the practice, hire the right people, and get it to where you want to be. But we're gonna share the playbook.
Awesome. Maybe you could kind of go through some of the things that we're going to talk about. I mean, we kind of alluded to some of the important aspects of doing a startup and things not to overlook and try to wing it on. But specifically, what are some of the things that you personally are going to talk about to Hare and myself?
Yeah. So if we go, first of all, I want to give people the landing page that our good friends at The Wonderist made. This will give you some more information and allow you to sign up with the early bird special. It is events.practicelaunchpad.com/DSM. And we're gonna go through everything you've kind of laid out: how to vet and negotiate architects and contractors, how to save thousands on equipment and IT. Super easy. You just need to know what to look for and what the prices we should be, and you need to be able to normalize that, right? How to attract, hire, and onboard a level 10 team. Especially now, I mean, it's still hard to find people. I've had an ad out at this satellite office for a couple months. I've tried to connect with every person I know, and we're having trouble finding a qualified front office team member. So we're going to show you the kind of strategy on how to get people attracted to your practice and then onboard them. What else do we got? Budgets, setting up financial benchmarks, of course, vision and pro formas, setting those up. How to design your floor plan and maximize it for efficiency. How to set up sterilization and supply rooms for optimal organization and flow. I mean, the flow of the supply room and the sterilization set are super important for overhead control. Like Mark has talked about a million times on the podcast, when you have doors on your cabinets, you have supplies hiding in the back of these cabinets that are never used. They go expire. That's wasted money. So we want it right in front of us, easy to see, easy to deploy, and easy for inventory. Because something that maybe associates don't realize is one of the biggest things is, and I have coaching calls on this all the time, is how do you keep your supply budget so low? How do I train a team member how to order properly and not order too much or too little? And there's definitely inventory control softwares out there, but none of those have replaced actually knowing what that looks like, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah,
for sure. And I will say that, Chris's overhead is typically in the low 40s, and he's in a relatively competitive area. He still gets a ton of new patients every single month. He's one of those head scratchers, kind of a unicorn, even within our group of very, very high performers. So if you're going to learn about overhead control from anybody, it should be from Chris. And I love whenever I pin you down, whether it's on the show or we're doing it in front of, a larger group of our mastermind members, and saying, Chris, what exactly is it that gets you in the low 40s for overhead when the typical overhead in the United States is 68 to 72%. And whenever you start rattling things off, it's like, it's not sexy. It's actually kind of boring and mundane, but it's like when you stack all of those really good practices on top of one another, you get an operation that is run in a super lean manner. And, those extra 8% off of, what's already a black belt level of 50%, if you're at 52 or 42 or 43% overhead, that could potentially be life-changing money, because, 8% on a $3 million practice is, that's $240,000 that you're saving just for being really, really disciplined about the way that you spend your money and you buy supplies.
Yeah, and I think that you build kind of those muscles for overhead control during the startup process by just paying attention to costs along the way and taking it seriously. And it's not that and we've said it before, it's not that we're cheap. It's not that we're cutting corners. We're not buying, gray market products or anything. We're just being intentional about it. And it's just about hitting singles and doubles every day. It's not about hitting all on fours every day, although Tahir might tell us differently. Just kidding. He it takes years to build out a specialty practice like that. But for most practices, hitting the singles and doubles every day and just kind of really watching our costs, you'll be taking home a lot more money with just simple things.
Yeah, for sure. So one more time, the I don't have it in front of me, Chris.
I got
the
it.
URL for to register and sign up?
So anyone who's interested in learning more, we're going to have a 2-day Power Pack days for sure. We're calling it the Dental Startup Masterclass. With your host will be Dr. Mark Costas, myself, and Dr. Tahir Doon. It's in Houston at the Vauxhall facility. We're limited to 35 attendees, and it's starting to fill up already. So if you want to get in, please reach out to us. You could go to the website at events.practicelaunchpad.com/DSM and book your early bird ticket. It's $19.97. After February 14th, it's going to jump up a little bit. So come on out. We're going to have several sponsors there. So we're going to have people from different vendors that we trust, and they'll be sharing some of the tricks of the trade as well. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be great. The resources, I'm excited. A resource that we built a couple of years ago, and we keep refining and making better and better. It's like an 800-page manual on the whole process from, vision all the way through to business management and how to be a good leader. And everybody that attends is going to get that manual, along with all the other information that we're ready to share.
Oh, this is awesome. There's other people in the dental space that teach about startups, and we respect them all. But I must say, and I might be biased, that this one is going to be extremely powerful and maybe one of the coolest things out there right now, just because we've actually done it. We are dentists that have actually gone through the pains of doing it incorrectly and also figured out how to do it the right way. We coach people every single day inside DSI, dozens, if not, multiple dozens of dentists that come through DSI are startup owners as well. So we've refined kind of our delivery. We've refined our knowledge base. And I think this is going to be a really, really powerful event. Once again, the great people at Voxel have allowed us to use their brand new facility, gorgeous facility in Houston, Texas, but it isn't huge. It's only, we're limited to 35 people. So it's going to be a very, very intimate learning experience and environment. It's not going to be, my typical summit is like 700 to 1,000 people, totally different than that. It's more like a breakout session. And you can throw as many questions at us as possible. If you're already going through the process and you've already found a location and you want to bring your kind of floor plan and stuff, we'll all learn a lot by just kind of picking it apart and going through it in front of your other attendees. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. March 9th and 10th in Houston, Texas.
Absolutely. Even if you've already signed a lease and things like that, there's a lot of takeaways from this. I'm just excited. It's going to be a nice setting where we can all get to know each other a little bit, all hang out, have some drinks afterward. And it'll be different than, some of those big events out there. We'll actually be able to connect. And I can't wait.
Cool. Well, all right, Chris, I know that you're busy and you probably have some patients to get to. So I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for slicing out a little time for us, and look forward to seeing you in Houston, if not before that.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Chris Green.